just a short screencast to show the application that we've developed for the Heritage Jam 2014, which we've called Voices Recognition. Voices Recognition is really an exploration of the burial records, the census records, and other information about the cemetery in York, the big municipal cemetery in York. What we've tried to do here is create stories around the graves that can be experienced both in situ as a kind of embodied experience, walking around the site using an iPad to access the application, but equally they can be experienced remotely through a web browser. The website itself is developed mainly for the iPad screen, which is why it looks in this way here. It opens with a splash screen just to kind of get you into the feeling of the application. If we continue, the sort of main view is this map of the cemetery itself. On the web browser view, you don't have any idea of your location, and so instead you're just presented with this map. But if this is actually playing if you're using this application on an iPad, you would have a small red flashing dot which shows you where you are within the cemetery itself. The Voices Recognition application attempts to do two things. Firstly, it attempts to give you more information about the cemetery itself and the people that are buried within it. And secondly, it attempts to give you an idea or a feeling of all of the untold stories of the people that are buried there, this cacophony of voices that might be resurrected if you could hear the stories of the people that are buried. It's very difficult to talk about that just through this screencast. So I'm just going to go through the application a little bit, and hopefully we can show you what that actually means. But obviously you're going to need to read the paradata and look at some of the other resources that we've provided. For instance, the video, which would be an example of what this application would actually be like if you were experiencing it. So the application itself can give you more information about the cemetery. At the moment we're looking at a map of the cemetery as it is today, but we could walk back in time if we wanted to. This is what the cemetery looked like in 1910, and then a little bit earlier there's a smaller section of it, and then a little bit earlier as well. And equally, if you're walking around with the iPad application, because your GPS location is being fed to the application, it will automatically update this type of thing. So if you're near this chapel, for instance, then some extra information about the chapel would appear. But on the web-based version of this, you can just click on it and it will show. But the real kind of guts of this application are actually the voices. That's what we really wanted to portray to everyone, is how many stories there are and how many people there are buried in this huge cemetery, and what those stories might be if they could be told. So we've created a couple of hotspots or a couple of paths that you might take. Again, if you're on the iPad application, as you're walking, these sounds would play as you walk around, and they'd fade out and fade in as you walk past different graves. But for this screencast, for this kind of demonstration, we've just created a couple of hotspots. For instance, this one here.
My name is William Routledge, of York, not of Sunderland. That's another William Routledge. I'm a butcher's son of the shambles, the great flesh shambles, master of the snickerways.
So this particular narrative would be playing as you walk past William Routledge's grave, and it would also give you more information about what's going on in that particular area. So what we're doing is we're querying a database we have for about 10 meters around your current location, and that gives you some ideas of what types of graves are about, as you can see here. So there's a common grave, a lock-up grave, or a monument grave. All of those types of graves appear within 10 meters of your location. And also, you are walking past William Routledge's grave, and so you hear a story about William Routledge, and that story is built from linked online open data from the censuses, from the burial records, and from the parish records themselves. And here's another one where we're walking through a part of the cemetery that is absolutely filled with burials.
That was the prime thing, if you like, it was an extension.
So you can see here there's 25 graves, they've all got multiple burials in them, and all these stories are being told all at once, over the top of each other. The cacophony of this sound So now imagine if you're walking through this cemetery and you're hearing these stories, you're hearing all of these things rolling on top of each other, all of these people wanting to tell their stories. The cemetery itself is a very, very quiet place as you walk through. It's very sombre, it's very solemn. And yet all these stories are just waiting to be told. All of these people who've died, who've been buried there, are waiting to tell their stories. So voices recognition tries to bring those stories to life and tries to remind you that the cemetery isn't a quiet place. It's actually a place of many, many souls, many, many stories, many, many human stories which have been told and want to be told. And that is really what we've been attempting to do here.
Well, they had at least First World War. When we first started our soup kitchen, we just donate and ask for donations of food, anything just to provide a meal.
It's a moving.
So that was the prime thing. If you like, it was an extension of our domestic life at the time, caring and feeding. But then we escalated at a pace that we were really
On his drawing
going.
We're fish and chips on a Monday. Laddie sauce with the fried chicken.
My name is William Routledge, of York, not of Sunderland. That's another William Routledge. I'm a butcher's son, son of the shambles, the great flesh shambles.
Meat and tatty pie or cottage pie. Butchers were very, very good to us. Bakers.
Made out and sold in shops like Holgate and so on, included a doll with 3 interchangeable porcelain heads and also a tiny lawn.